what angels used to show up to me as was these very, very beautiful, more androgynous looking people in just these beautiful white robes, and just had like an ethereal glow to them, and just very high vibration energy. So, and I just knew in my mind when I saw them and they came that they were angels. um, and everything's telepathic. So all my experiences when I'm outside of my body that I've had, everything's telepathic, and it feels so normal and natural there. So anything you think is what you tell someone, pretty much. The interesting thing, though, is I only saw angels in that way in my teen years, in my NDE. And then later on, when I had a spiritual reawakening after many years, they just showed up as giant light beings. And they had explained to me at that point, oh, they didn't need to, worry about showing up as their true forms anymore.
Welcome in. I'm Kimberly. I'm so glad you're here today. I am very, very excited about the conversation that's coming up. If you're enjoying this content, make sure you click that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. And if you would rather listen than watch, we're now available on all podcast platforms, Spotify, iTunes, all of them. Just type in Journey to the New Earth and you'll find us there. In addition, if you'd like to keep track of what's happening around the planet, but it feels a little overwhelming, particularly about the journey to the new Earth, you might want to sign up for our Friday morning email newsletter. The link is in the description box down below. Every Friday morning, we send out a very short, very sweet, but informative email newsletter featuring what we think are the big events moving us forward on this journey. I think you're going to love it. It's super easy to sign up. You just click the link down below and it lands in your email inbox on Friday morning.
Have I told you how much I love Jupiter CBD oil? A few years back, I started waking up with stiff and sore joints. As a matter of fact, I'd have to actually crack my hands to get them working in the morning. I was really concerned because I had seen my mother and grandmother both suffer from debilitating arthritis, particularly in their hands. I went on a journey to find a more natural remedy for my stiff and sore joints and landed on CBD oil. That became a years-long quest to find a good formula that was consistent, that didn't taste horrible. And I'll tell you what, I am almost a consumer expert of CBD oils at this point. Luckily, a few years ago, I found Jupiter CBD oil and I couldn't be more thrilled. What I've experienced is very consistent quality, a very mild taste, and a good effect on my joints. I actually take this every night before bed. Jupiter CBD oil is sustainably sourced from organic ingredients, and the company itself is just wonderful. They have a heart for their products and a heart for their customers. Featuring 4 different formulas, including one for your pets, I take the Dreamland every night before bed. I sleep like a baby. My joints are fluid, pain-free, and very, very flexible. I really couldn't be happier with my results. Jupiter offers free shipping, free returns, 100% money-back guarantee, and I'm telling you, the best customer support system on the planet. I'm not kidding you one little bit. In addition, they now feature gummies and capsules, so make sure that you look over their entire product line when you're on the Jupiter website. I love Jupiter. It's a nice, small company, which I really appreciate. Visit getjupiter.com and use the code NEWEARTH for 20% off your entire order. Great sleep, less stress, fewer aches. Jupiter CBD oil. I think you're gonna love it.
Now, I'm very happy to introduce our guest, energy healer Nadine Telishewsky. That last name's a challenge for me. Welcome in, Nadine. How are you?
I'm okay. Thank you so much, Kimberly.
Yeah, I'm
excited
to
to be on your show.
I'm excited to talk to you too, because there's so many questions I have about your journey. Now, you're currently working primarily as an energy healer, but your spiritual experiences started way back when. So why don't you take us back to when you first started connecting with spirit, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Thank you so much. Okay, well, I'll tell you just a little bit about my youth. So for me, I started leaving my body many times when I was 6 years old, and that was due to some trauma, some sexual abuse. And what happened was I would leave my body and see myself from above, and then everything would go dark. And it was only years later that angels had shown me that my soul grandmother had actually come in each time and swooped me up. And that's why everything went dark. She would scoop me up in her arms and her long dress, and she would fly off with me. And she would bring me back when it was finishing. So I was very thankful for her for that happening. So those are my first experiences, being out of my body many times when I was younger. And then when I was 13 years old, I actually had at that point picked up the Bible. I was Catholic at the time in my teen years, and I picked up a Bible and I had read it. And in my 13-year-old mind, I thought angels are real. I read it here in the Bible, and I went to go pray to God, and I told him I would do anything to work with his angels. And I was praying and begging to him. I remember at age 13 for that to happen. And what I remember is about, I'm not sure exactly how much longer, maybe 6 months or maybe closer to a year, angels started coming to me at night. So they would come into my dreams, and everything would suddenly become very cognizant and vivid. And I would have all my cognition back. And I knew they were angels, and they wanted me to follow them out of a dream, and they would show me things. So that's how, from the ages of 13 to 19, I occasionally had angel experiences.
Okay,
So
I want to stop
Great
you here
one.
because I'm so curious about that. You know, if someone says to me, the angels came to me, I'm like, okay, I have 100 questions. First of all, what did they look like? How did you guys communicate? Can you tell us a little bit more about the details of the experience? I find that fascinating.
Okay, yes, sure. So what's interesting is when I was in my teen years, what angels used to show up to me as was these very, very beautiful, more androgynous looking people in just these beautiful white robes, and just had like an ethereal glow to them, and just very high vibration energy. So, and I just knew in my mind when I saw them and they came that they were angels. And everything's telepathic. So all my experiences when I'm outside of my body that I've had, everything's telepathic, and it feels so normal and natural there. So anything you think is what you tell someone, pretty much. The interesting thing, though, is I only saw angels in that way in my teen years. In my NDE. And then later on, when I had a spiritual reawakening after many years, they just showed up as giant light beings. And they had explained to me at that point, oh, they didn't need to, worry about showing up as their true forms anymore. So I think they only did that
Right.
in my youth, just in case, I might be a little afraid or worried. They thought, okay, well, maybe we'll put
Yeah.
on a, more human looking shell for her so she doesn't get worried.
So
But
they showed up in a way that felt comfortable for you, and you
yeah.
would connect them to angels. That's what I've heard a
Yes.
lot, is that so this is a question I have, and I've heard it from others, and I'm wondering if it's the same for you. When you were with them, did it seem hyper real that time together? In other words, did it seem different than the nature of this reality?
Yes, yes, thank you. So it's hard to always explain things in words down here, because the words that the language and the words that we have in this realm are for this realm. So it's always hard to attribute words to that realm.
I've heard
But
that there's just no words for it.
that's it. We have to create new words. What it feels like every time I'm out in that realm, whether it was in my youth, whether it was my NDE, or the many other astral traveling experiences I had with angels, is when we're outside of our body, we're outside of time.
Okay.
So you don't feel it at all. You feel completely outside of it, and everything's different. My mind thinks differently. My emotions are different. Everything is different up there. So I think we're more connected to our higher selves. And so everything, yes, that is a good term to use, hyper real. Everything a lot of times feels more real there than down here,
Okay.
which has made it a learning process for me, because especially after I had my awakening and then I was constantly out of my body to step in and out of that existence and this existence, to know and feel that this is more the simulation illusionary world where we can have experiences and learning experiences. And it's it was a transition period to get used to being there and here, when up there is our home. Up there is more real than down here, even though both are beautiful, but they're very different.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that sounds so interesting. Okay, so you had these angel experiences when you were in your teens.
Mm.
What happened next?
Yes, so I'll just kind of mention a few things that happened. One thing is they showed me multiple past lives, which was wonderful to see, because in each one I was actually a different nationality. I lived in a different country in the world. I had different experiences, different personalities, so it was wonderful to see, having all these different experiences, and knowing that we connect back to all these different nationalities and being male and female and everything else. So that was one thing they showed me. They showed me a couple of premonitions at the time, very shortly. What they both basically were is, one, I saw how much natural disasters and global warming are going to have a much bigger effect and change, our landscapes and everything else, which actually hasn't happened yet. This will happen more in the future. So they were showing me that in one. And in another premonition, they actually showed me that these years that we're in right now, the 20s and 30s, are these times that they kind of refer to as the shift,
Ooh,
where,
so you knew about this a long time ago.
well, here's the thing. I didn't get to see particulars. I didn't get to see particulars. I want to make that clear. But what I was shown, it was in a metaphoric way. It was really interesting. There's not often that they showed me metaphors of premonitions and whatnot, but this one was definitely a metaphor, and I didn't. It took me a while to figure everything out. But basically, what they showed me is, it was interesting. I was on an astral realm, and I had an angel beside me, and I saw what looked like kind of a cereal version of giant ice cubes, the best I can explain it. Giant
Mhm.
1,000-foot tall ice cubes all around. And there were 17 of them. And each one had a different warrior protector angel, so to speak, in them, because they were all in gear, armor, and a shield and a sword. And they weren't they weren't like, they were there to protect, right? Like, there was nothing, they weren't going to harm anyone. It wasn't anything like that. Like, these were protector angels, I understood. And they were each in a different stance, ready to protect. And they were each in their cube. So the metaphor was, they're not ready to come out yet. They're more, frozen in that state until they're ready to come out. And what I understood was, they showed me that one of them already started melting, and it would take 21 years for the first one to completely melt down, to have the first angel, so to speak, released. And again, that's not really what was happening. They just showed me this whole metaphor for some reason. And then I understood, in succession, each one would come out afterwards, and their purpose was to help us, because there would be a minimum of 17. I understood now there's going to be at least 20 different worldwide events or themes of events taking place in the world, that with each one, it'll give humanity an opportunity to overcome a common goal together, and more come together as one people, more in unity and world peace, if that makes sense. So I guess I should have said, hold on, I just realized I should have explained, this happened in 1999 when I was 19 years old. And so at the time, I understood, okay, these shifting events, and these more, protector angels that are going to be there for each one to help us through, was going to happen 21 years later. And 21 years later was 2020. And that's when we had COVID, which actually was a worldwide event that everyone experienced universally. So I understood that that was one of the first ones, if that makes sense. So that was one of the other premonitions that I understood at the time.
Well, that just opens a whole lot of questions right there. When you saw those angels, how was it communicated to you? And I know it's so hard to talk about telepathic communication and just a knowing. It's like all of a sudden you get a knowing. I know it's so difficult, but how did you get to the realization that Earth was going to go through a major shift?
Yes, so when I was younger, I only got exposed to a little bit. Those are the only two when I was younger. Then there was some other things they showed me, and it was only later on, a few years ago, when I had a spiritual reawakening after many, many years, after I had closed down after my NDE for many years, that all of a sudden it was so intense, because every day after I had my awakening, angels were taking me out of my body, showing me things, showing me how to work with energies, how to connect with people and everything in the universe, giving me all these channelings. I have copybooks everywhere of just channelings from angels with all different beautiful messages. And right away they're saying, everything in your life has to change. You have to open up your own business. You have to start doing talks. You have to start getting all this out there. These messages aren't meant for you. They're meant for humanity. So it was so intense, and so much was happening. And that is how I then got to have so much more context to what they showed me in my youth, and in my NDE, and now to understand the changes that are happening in humanity, which again, the end goal of is for us to transition to a higher realm, a higher state of consciousness, and to, again, more come together in unity, come together in peace and oneness, for all of us to put aside the illusion that we're all separate, and that we all are one, and we have one consciousness together, and to help open that up.
Yeah, exciting times. So you had those experiences as a teenager, and then I believe you had an NDE in your 20s. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. So when I was 24 years old, I actually had an NDE when I went to a New Year's Eve party with my best friend at the time, and I didn't know a man had put a date rape drug in my drink. And after I drank it, I had an overdose and a massive heart attack from that.
Yeah.
So I can tell you about that experience now.
Yeah, if it's not too painful.
Yeah, no, that's okay. At this point, I'm very, it's interesting. Even when I first came back, I was completely detached from the experience, if that makes sense, where I saw it more as an experience more than a trauma, even though it was a trauma. So I'm not sure if that makes sense, but maybe that was part of, coming back after the NDE. So I'm thankful for that. But yes, so what was interesting is I actually had 5 premonitions before I had my NDE.
You
So
did.
I'll just tell those really quick. So first of all, for 6 months before it happened, I started to, I don't know why, I just started being more scared of things that I was eating and drinking more and more, and I wasn't sure why I started to have a lot of anxiety about, consuming something. 3 months before my NDE, I actually had a very vivid dream that I was with my best friend at the time, and we were standing in some unknown location, and I was holding a mixed drink, and all I know is that I suddenly, in this dream, passed out, I had a heart attack, and I died. And I woke up thinking that was extremely vivid, but it was just a dream, and I kind of ignored it at the time, not realizing it was a premonition. And then a week before my NDE, I'd received an invitation to go to this New Year's Eve house party at the house of a coworker that I only knew so well. And I had a feeling as soon as I got that invitation, something doesn't, feel right that's going to happen there, but I didn't know what. And then the night before my NDE, I had 2 dreams. One of them, I dreamt of this tall, thin Caucasian man in his 20s, and he had blonde hair, and he had an eyebrow ring, and he came over and he introduced himself, and we were chatting and laughing. And then the next day at the party, a man comes in looking exactly like that and comes over and starts chatting and laughing with me. So it was interesting that I saw that. And the other dream I had the night before the party was actually another astral travel with angels. And I should have put this together at the time, but I was so used to them showing up sometimes that they grabbed my hand, they flew me across the universe, and I was in some type of, I'm going to say building, even though it didn't even have a roof. It was just this building that looked like it went all the way up. And they were showing me what my job was going to be in the afterlife. And they showed me I was going to be a guide for multiple other, or a group of multiple souls that were still going to be living here at this time. So I was just very quickly shown, okay, this is your group. And I understood I was going to be a guide, and then it just got cut off, so to speak. So I'm not sure what else they showed me. So those are all the things that I saw. And the last thing on that note, to say is when they were showing me my job to be a guide in the afterlife, I thought that was so wonderful to see that I understood as we get older, the older souls are there to be the guide for the younger souls, because we're each here in humanity to each help each other along the way. So it made perfect sense to me that this is how it would work. So even though I had all those premonitions and even shown what I was apparently supposed to do in the afterlife, I somehow also had this strong feeling that I needed to go to this party for some reason. So that's what I listened to. So I went to this party with my best friend at the time. It was New Year's Eve, 2004. And while I was there, I was only there for 2 hours. I only sipped on 2 mixed drinks during that time. And most of the time my drink was in one room of the house, and a lot of times I was in other rooms, I was dancing, I was chatting with people, so I wasn't around my drink often, not realizing that, there'd be anything wrong with that. So all I know is that after 2 hours, all of a sudden I felt really high, I guess is the best word I can use. And then I suddenly collapsed. My feet, my legs just gave out underneath me. I collapsed, and I started to become more and more paralyzed. It felt like my legs first, and then slowly going up my body. And I remember telling my best friend at the time that I was scared, and I told her somebody must have drugged my drink. I was somebody who hadn't taken any recreational drugs, and it was the only thing that made sense to me. And it's good I told her, because soon after I realized I was completely now becoming paralyzed and passing out. And I just remember yelling out in my head, "God, please help me." And then I completely blacked out. From what my best friend had said at the time, after I passed out, she said there was a few men who came up to her and said, "Oh, she must just be drunk. We're going to go pick her up and put her in one of the bedrooms upstairs. She can go sleep it off." But my best friend said, "No, no one's touching her." So it was really sweet that, I had my own guardian angel, so to speak, looking after me at the time. So at some point, she said I started vomiting black. Which I understood later on was blood in my system. They realized something was wrong. They called 911. I ended up in a hospital. So all I know is that, I had passed out there and then woke up 6 hours later in a hospital feeling absolutely horrible and disoriented and in pain and everything else. And a doctor was looking at me funny, and he said that I had a drug overdose and I had a massive heart attack from it. And that was happening on the way into the hospital. So now it's hours later. I'm just coming to. They're asking me questions. I'm trying to explain to them what happened to me, but they didn't treat me very well. I think maybe they thought that I was a drug addict. I'm not sure. Not that I'm saying that would have been appropriate, right? Even if someone was, but they didn't really seem to want to talk to me much or listen to me much. So as soon as I was more able to just get up, and I remember holding onto a wall just to get to the washroom to go use the washroom, they pretty much said, "Okay, we'll discharge her. She's gonna be fine." So they gave me a prescription for potassium, because after I had a heart attack, now they said I really have to regulate my heart rate for the next few days, and this is what I need. However, I lived by myself. I went home. I felt, I can't even tell you what how horrible I felt. So I went home and I just stayed in bed all day because I didn't feel well enough to do anything else. So I remember now, it's the next day, it's January 1st. The day's going on. I'm feeling worse and worse. And then all of a sudden in the evening, I'm in my bed, I'm underneath all my covers, I'm shivering. with all these chills, I felt so weak, and I felt my heart go back and forth between beating really fast and then beating very slow, back and forth, until I literally just felt it stop. And I popped out of my body the moment that it stopped. And I felt so weightless, and I felt completely just free, and I felt the lack of time there. And I was just so thrilled to have left my body and left all the pain and sickness and everything behind, because I felt so good. I didn't even want to look at my body. I had knew exactly what had happened. I had died. Great.
You
I
were
knew
moving
exactly.
on.
Oh yeah, I knew exactly what to do. I knew where heaven was, and I'm like, I'm coming up. And I just started
Oh my
flying
gosh.
as fast as I can, straight up. And I'm like, great, this is wonderful. So as I was doing that, all of a sudden everything went dark just for a few seconds, but it wasn't scary at all. It was a comforting dark. And then all of a sudden it lifted. And when it lifted, I realized first I was in this beautiful meadow and landscape, and everything's just so gorgeous and so vibrant and had so much, beautiful light energy coming off of it. And then I noticed beside me there was a hundreds of feet tall um, being. He he. I kind of always say he's kind of a creature-like being, but he wasn't scary at all. He was wearing an ethereal shell of black smoke. However, he was a beautiful, gigantic light angel underneath, because I could see beaming so far the beautiful unconditional love and light, high vibrational energy coming out of his eyes and his nose and his mouth and his ears. So I understood he was just wearing this ethereal costume, and I just knew telepathically that this was the angel of death. This was Azrael. And what happened was, as I was heading up, he saw I, needed to adjust my course to get to the right place. So he had taken his wing and scooped me up in it and got me to where I needed to go, and then let me go. And this is why I now saw him beside me, and I saw him fly forward. And there was some mountains further ahead past the meadow, and he went to go fly to the top of it. And while he was doing this, I was thanking him so much, for helping me to get, to the right place and get back home. And he telepathically told me, "We are pleased for you to be back home." And then he went to, the side of a mountaintop, and I saw he was just scanning, and it was, his job to see everyone who's transitioning on that day to help them get where they need to go.
Wow, what a cool job. I might want
Yeah.
that job. It's kind of like a little traffic person, for
Exactly. So I
for
thought
the
that was
astral realm. Yeah.
And he had the most peaceful, loving, just vibration coming from him. So I always like to mention that to others, that in my mind I understood this is more the angel of solace, right, than the angel of death that he's portrayed, in movies and whatnot, as having a Sith and everything. But no, he's this beautiful light angel. So then I saw this beautiful light energy come down as a beam right near me, and I went into the light, and it was God's light. I knew it was God's light, and it was coming from a much farther, higher up level of heaven. And the light wasn't just light; it was energy, it was consciousness, it was God itself, and it was absolute unconditional love, and it embedded every aspect of my being that was vibrating with it, and it overtook me, and I was just so overwhelmed, but in a good way, right? Just of just being in that bliss, and it was so wonderful. So I started to just move along its path, because that's where I wanted to go. I knew I was back home, and I just wanted to go all the way back home, of where the source of where the light was coming from. And as soon as I started going up, a light angel came, a much smaller one now, and came in front. And I think he was more, I guess, a guide, to also help people where they need to go. And he had confirmed that this was my ideal time to transition on. So this is when it was supposed to be, and he was there to, we were going to move along the path soon, which was wonderful. And we had to do a few things first. So first, we stopped, and he motioned to my left, and he said, "Look." And I looked there, and that is where I had my life review. So I relived my entire life over again. but in a matter of moments this time. However, I relived it from not only my perspective, but from every single other person's perspective that I had ever known and interacted with in my life. So it had me had this kind of 360 understanding of my life now. And while that was happening, I wasn't judged for anything. I also wasn't commended for anything. Everything was just complete acceptance fully of everything that had happened to me. And the only things in my life that felt almost just slightly highlighted in a way was just any time that me or anyone else was kind towards each other. So I understood that the only thing that matters in life is just how kind we are to each other and what kindness we pass on, which I thought was beautiful. After my life review, I then saw this giant cyclone of energy all the way underneath it that went, I can't even tell you how far down into the astral, and I could see all my past lives sticking out underneath them, and there was a lot. And I was given the option if I wanted to, have a life review of all my lives that I had before this one. But because I had already seen a bunch of my past lives in my youth in this life, I'm like, no, I'm good. I don't need to see them again. And he said, okay.
We'll just move along here.
Yeah. He's like, okay,
That's so
sure,
funny.
no problem. So, which is fine. So at that point, we started to move, back more up into that light again. And then all of a sudden, something caught my eye as we're doing this, and to the right and to down, I saw flashes of something, and I was looking, and at the time, it was flashes of different, I guess, images of what was going to happen in the future to humanity, to all different people. Most of them I didn't know. And I stopped and I suddenly was fixated on it, and I was watching these scenes. And they worried me because some things were positive, some were neutral, and some were very sad things that I saw. And my heart really ached at the time for, the sad things I was seeing. So when I stopped, the angel had realized that I had stopped as well, and then, was waiting for me to process this so we can move along. Instead, I asked him, would all of these negative events still happen if I hadn't have died right now? And the angel said, what you see is simply the future that is currently set to be, yet any possible change could conceivably change what is yet to come. So I said, is it possible at all for me to go back and attempt to stop some of these negative events from taking place? And the angel paused and said, we must warn you that there's a possibility you may not succeed in stopping any negative event or even change anything for the betterment, but we will leave the decision up to you if you choose to return to Earth or not. So I told the angel, even knowing that I may not be able to change anything, I at least have to try. So the angel seemed a little concerned at this point, as I understood this was supposed to be my ideal time to transition on. And there's not one set time. A lot of times there are, a few different windows, but this was supposed to be my ideal time. They actually, in my youth, had already shown me what my next life was supposed to be. And I was supposed to be, for some years now, growing up as a female in Spain and living a life there. So, and they had already shown me what my job was going to be in the afterlife. I was, supposed to start going to be a guide now. So I would have been changing all of that if I was going to come back into this avatar. I just call it an avatar body at that time. However, we have complete free will always to choose whatever we want to do in life. And I understood even when we come down and make contracts, they're not set in stone. Nothing is set in stone. Everything is free will choice. So I like to call contracts more a to-do list because we do a to-do list. We come down in a lifetime. We can choose to do them. We can choose to change them. We can do them later on, and that's okay because it's free will choice. So because of that, and I was choosing for whatever reason, I'm like, no, I got to come back into this body. They decided then, okay, that's fine. And with a wave of his arm, he more just released me from the light, so to speak. And I suddenly went crashing so fast and so far down and just crashed back into my body and right back into feeling, so sick and so horrible once again that I was feeling when I had first, my heart had first stopped and I left my body. So at that point, I didn't see the angel anymore, but I very distinctly still heard his voice in my head, and he said, "Your mother is about to phone you. You must turn over and answer your phone if you're going to survive." And
Oh, wow.
moments later,
That's
hmm, go ahead.
that's just, I'm stunned. I mean, that's just such an incredible memory.
Yeah. So after he said that, matter of moments later, my phone starts ringing. And I remember it took all my energy just to turn over in bed and pick up my phone and answer it. And it was my mother. And she had just heard that I had been in the hospital the night prior, and said, is there anything that you need? And I said, yes, I have a prescription for potassium and I don't feel well enough to get it. So she came over, got the prescription, and brought me the potassium, which I did take for the next few days, and had to be careful of a lot of things later on. But it did regulate my heart rate, and I at least did not have another heart attack, at least for another couple of years. And at least the other one didn't result in an MDE, so that's okay. But that's what happened at the time. And just to say one last thing in regards to this, that as soon as I had gotten back into my body, I realized that I remembered other things about my NDE. However, they erased from my memory exactly what any of the premonitions were that I was looking at. So I still know I was there, I could still see them, but it's like they're all blurred. So even though that was the one reason I had chosen at the time to come back, was because of those premonitions. I came back and then I realized I don't know what to do now. I felt like I didn't have a purpose for a long time because that was my purpose, but I can't stop anything that I don't know is happening anymore, if that makes sense. So this was something I really, really had to process for many years of the decision I made, because they hadn't, warned me at the time, okay, we'll put you back in the body, but we're going to erase, these premonitions over.
Here's the question that comes up for me about that. Because I've heard that the experience on the other side is just so deliciously wonderful.
Yeah.
It feels so loving. It feels so good that this feels very rough in comparison.
Yeah.
How did you work through that you decided to leave that and to come back to this reality system that can be a lot less loving, a lot less delicious, if you will? How did you work through that?
Yes. So there's been a lot. that a
I would
lot's happened
imagine,
in the
yeah.
years since. So it was a process. So there's a few different aspects here. One is, when I made this decision, I did not make this decision as my Nadine avatar self in this lifetime. I made it as my higher self. So I think that maybe I may have had a different NDE experience than perhaps some, because I was completely not Nadine anymore at all. Like, my life was gone. This was just, it was a blip. I was already done with it. I was already, my mind was different. My emotions were different. Everything was different. So I was completely my higher self, which angels had given me my soul name before. My soul name is Royat, which is derived from ancient Sanskrit and means the color red, interestingly enough. And that's always been my color that I've loved my whole life. And some people have even nicknamed me Red. So that resonated with me, that, oh, this makes sense. I'm red, I'm Royat. So I understood I was Royat there. I wasn't Nadine anymore. So it was my higher self who had made that decision of wanting to come back for that purpose and open up a new contract, so to speak, to come down. And then when I came in the body, and I was back in the consciousness of Nadine, I was even like, no, what happened? I had my chance. Why did I choose that? So it completely was a whole other aspect that I needed to contend with, because me as Nadine, I didn't want to leave the unconditional love. I didn't want to leave home. I wanted to just keep going back there. So it took me a long time to process this and understand what had happened. So completely what you're saying is very accurate. It's just, oh, it's the bliss. It's no suffering, no pain, no anything. It's just, it's perfection there, right? It's heaven. So
I'm thinking about, human life. You get a parking ticket and you're like, I could be in heaven right now. but instead I have a parking ticket. It's just
Yeah.
the juxtaposition of the goofy stuff that happens in this reality system to compare to the bliss up there. It's like, I
Yeah.
can't believe it.
Yeah.
Do you ever find yourself in that situation of, I can't believe I did this?
Well, it was that for some years. I mean, I came back, I had a whole bunch of health issues. Everything in my life fell apart. I lost everything. I did. I lost my family. I lost my health. I lost everything. I was even, so to speak, homeless for 4 months, where I didn't actually end up on a street, thankfully. But I mean, I had to kind of, just stay at friends' houses,
Yeah.
stay in, all night cafes and various things. So I mean, I lost, I pretty much, I lost everything. Everything kind of collapsed when I came back. So and with me trying to speak to people about my experiences, it didn't go well because a lot of people were pulling away from me. Some people thought I was crazy, which I understand. I don't blame them. Some people thought I was crazy. Some people thought, oh, you just had a dream. You didn't die. You didn't have an experience there, which is fine. Again, that's something that makes more rational sense, I get from a human perspective. But I was losing everything. And then the few people that I had in my life were also, more pulling away. So I decided at that point, you know what? I have to shut this down. So I had made
Oh,
that decision. I need to shut this down. I need to not talk about these experiences. People don't understand if I'm talking about angels, if I'm talking about leaving my body, if I'm talking about that I died. So I thought at the time it was more important for me to have people in my life, to be part of society and fit in. And the only way that I could fit in is if I'm not focusing or talking about this aspect of my life at all. So I had lived actually the next 16 years with not talking about that at all, or trying to connect with the other side, just because I didn't know how to. I wanted to, but I couldn't. So I chose to be more of society. And it was only a few years ago that I reopened, but that was my story. But to at least just really quickly go back to one of your questions, over the years, it took me a good 10 years, but slowly over the years, I was able to let go, and I was able to let go of all those aspects that when I first came back, and it was so difficult for me to be back and transition and know that all those premonitions were gone and everything else. I had learned to, slowly one by one shed all those and let it go, so that by the time I had my spiritual awakening many years later, I wasn't holding on to any of those anymore, and I had healed from everything, which was good. So it was just part of my process, I think, of coming back, that I needed those years to do that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, what an interesting journey, and not easy. Definitely not easy. That choice between fitting in and having human relationships
Mm, yeah.
versus what you knew to be true about our
Mm,
existence. It must have been challenging. But the good news is apparently something happened. So lead us into
mm,
how you woke back up and started connecting once more.
yes. So right at the very beginning of 2021, I felt so lost in my life because at this point, I hadn't been spiritual, and I always felt all these years like this longing, something missing from my being, from my heart, not, having connected with it for so long. And I had worked in a lot of different social service fields over those years. I'd worked with the homeless population for a decade, and I thought that was my passion in life. I thought that's what I was always going to do. But a series of events happened. I ended up with multiple back and hip injuries, and multiple other things happened in my life where things were kind of falling apart again. And I had to quit there so that I can heal. At this point, I was felt more back at square one. What's my purpose? What am I going to do? And I suddenly just set out into the universe again, beginning of, that year, 2021, that's it. I need to open up to my spirituality once again. This is what I'm missing. And I said, angels, I haven't seen you in so many years. I don't even know if you're still there, but I would love to have you back. And I also need a purpose. If you could please come back, help me. And I even said, maybe even what's one of Angel's biggest problems that maybe a human like me might be able to help you with. If you tell me, I'll help you. And here I am, again, fully believing that all this can happen once again, because I had those experiences in my youth again that I just hadn't for all those years, and I was hoping for the best. So I said that, and within a few weeks, everything changed. My angels came back. now they were directly speaking to me telepathically, which I didn't know I could do before, because in my youth they only came in my dreams. So I started to communicate with them. They started to get me to leave my body. Every day they were showing me things on the astral realms. They were showing me how to work with energies. They were showing me so many different aspects in terms of astral traveling, the universe giving me so many different channelings. I have copybooks everywhere filled with beautiful messages and channelings from them over this time, and they had let me know my whole life was going to change. I'm not supposed to be working with the homeless anymore. I'm supposed to be opening my own business, being an energy healer and a spiritual coach. I'm supposed to be a speaker. And even when they first told me all this, I told them, "Oh, I'm sorry, you have the wrong person. You should go find the person you have me confused with. That's not me." And they're like,
I knew
"No,
you were
no."
going to say that. You got the wrong girl.
And they're like, "No, no, we know who you are." And I said, "I'm a hermit. I don't leave the house. I'm afraid of everyone and everything. I'm terrified of public speaking. What do you mean I'm gonna have to do talks and and I said, "Look, I really want to help you guys, and I'm happy you're
Yeah, I
back, and
thought
I'll
you
help
knew
you."
me.
But I said, I can't do any of these other things. And they're like, it's gonna happen. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, but I'm like, just fine, just, we'll work together, but I don't think I could do anything else. And over the next year, I don't know how, I still have no idea how, but things kept changing and changing and changing. And all of a sudden, all these things were just put in my path to make all these things happen. And after a year, I even said, how did I get here? I don't understand. I never thought any of this was possible. So it was really fascinating how that happened. But a few other things that happened besides me realizing I can, now speak to them and astral travel at will. I even had a few beautiful other, well, they were all beautiful, but very touching experiences. All of a sudden, one time on the astral realm, my grandfather, who had been passed away for a decade already at that point, he suddenly showed up, and he gave me a little piece of silver light, and he had put it in my hand, and it was so precious what had happened, and I didn't know what to do with it because it doesn't exist in this realm. It only exists on a higher realm. So I decided to put it into my heart center because I thought, well, I got to put it somewhere for safekeeping, and where do you put something on an ethereal realm? So it was, just a very touching moment that happened. Occasionally, only very occasionally, I'm not a medium. Only very occasionally, I've had maybe a message come through from the other side of somebody who's transitioned on. So that's very rare, but every once in a while that's happened as well.
Yeah.
And another thing that happened is, as soon as my angels came back, I had let them know, okay, angels, I have suffered from anxiety and depression and PTSD my whole life. I want to heal my trauma, and I also had a lot of health issues at the time, and I said I want to heal my health issues. And here I was hoping maybe they can just, give me a healing or whatnot. I'm like, I'm open to a healing. Instead, they said, just not in a negative way, in a very sweet way, but saying, if you want to heal, you can heal yourself. You have, the ability and the power to. I'm like, okay, what do I need to do? I'll do it. So they had given me all the information that I needed. And then it was up to me to be able to do those things. So one thing that they had me do, these are very separate in regards to my trauma from my childhood and the PTSD I had for quite a few years because of it. At one point, I was on the astral realm, and angels at first were helping me detach from trauma from past lives, and then all of a sudden, they took my childhood abuser, who had been transitioned on for I don't know how many years, and they suddenly just put him in front of me, and they didn't say anything, and I had to decide what to do. And one of the things I knew that angels had said, and they're always very literal in everything, what they say, they had said, unconditional love heals all wounds. And I thought, okay, I have my abuser in front of me for the first time in many years. I got to decide what to do. And I realized I didn't want to get angry at him. I didn't want to ask him why he did it. Didn't matter anymore. None of it mattered. I just wanted to be healed from my trauma. So instead of saying anything to him or asking him anything or whatnot, I just thought, what is the sweetest, most unconditionally loving things I can do for him back? that's what I want to do in return for what he did to me. So I thought, okay, well, the nicest thing I could do for someone is send them into God's unconditional love energy. And I thought, I don't know if this is possible. So I'm like, God, can I have a ray of your love light energy? And a beam of his light energy came down in the background. And I said, okay, thank you. And then I thought, okay, I want to, forgive him. I want to put him in the light. So how am I going to do this? So first I said, okay, you know what? I said, I completely forgive you. I completely let go of attachment to anything that you had done to me. I choose to see whatever you did to me as just a learning experience. So thank you for your very hard lesson. Choose to forgive you, let you go, send you off for whatever's next for you. And then I thought, okay, I said what I need to say. How do I get him into the light now? And I thought, well, I have a throw blanket here that's white and fluffy, and it's my comfort blanket. And I thought, okay, well, I want to give him a comfort blanket. So I manifested out of my hands a blanket of unconditional love, because on the astral realm, you can instantly manifest anything you want or travel anywhere in the universe that you want to go simply through thought and intention alone. So I made my blanket of unconditional love. I swaddled him up like a baby because I thought, again, that's the sweetest thing I can do. And I felt love in my heart, and I sent it to him. And with the power of that, it went straight off into the light, and he went up into God's light. And the moment that he disappeared up into God's light, I felt all the weight of all the mental and emotional effects break off of my entire being, off of my chest and back and everywhere, like a load of bricks got lifted. And I felt it lift off of me and travel behind him and off into the light. And it was just broken off. And the next day, when I had woken up, I realized everything was different. I can think about my past abuse now. I can, just mention it to others, and it doesn't have an effect on me anymore. I'm detached from all the effects. It's like if I think of it now, it's like it happened on a movie screen. It happened to, Nadine, the character. It didn't happen to me. I don't have that attachment, so it can't trigger me anymore. So it healed me. It healed that wound. So angels were right of what they told me. Unconditional love heals all wounds, and it did in my case. So after that, I had learned, and that's how I ended up later on healing myself, a lot of my health issues and anxiety issues and fears and everything else, is I went back through my entire life and envisioned anyone who I may have felt hurt by in any way, or that scared me in any way, or anything else. And I forgave them, and I would send them off into the light. And after I did that, I was stopped by the light one day, and they said, "What about yourself?" And I said, "What do you mean, what about myself? I'm here forgiving everyone else." And they said, "No. Everyone deserves kindness and forgiveness equally. You deserve to give yourself the same kindness and forgiveness as well." And I said, okay, great. So then I went back and I started to imagine myself at every single point in my entire life that I felt unworthy, that I was angry at myself, that I blamed myself for things, that I felt shame or guilt over anything, that I didn't know how to let go of things. And there was a lot, because my entire life I hadn't felt good enough, and I had blamed myself for so much. And what's interesting is that it was harder for me to go back through my own life and forgive myself for everything that I had held against myself than it was for anyone who had ever caused me any amount of pain. So it was a process, but I kept going back and back and back and giving myself and giving everyone else that kindness equally. Which makes sense. We're all equal pieces of God that angels have always showed me, to treat everyone equally. We deserve the same amount of kindness in every single way. And they showed me something so beautiful as well, that in every situation, they encouraged me to do this process. They said, at any point, if I'm stressed, if I don't know what to do, anything else going on, they said, stop, step outside of yourself, turn around and look at yourself. They said, you are your beloved child, and you are here to nurture yourself. So whatever your beloved child needs in that moment, give it to yourself. So I had to learn this process for the first time in my life, to take care of me, to see myself as an equal, to bring myself up, to give myself that same nurturing and kindness. It wasn't all about go, 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 run, 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 help every single other person out around me, which I'd always tried to do in my past, which had run me down. So it's beautiful how they They want us to absolutely unconditionally love ourselves, absolutely unconditionally accept ourselves just as we are, not judge ourselves at all, and find that equality for ourselves. And that was all part of my healing process of what I needed to do in various other ways, but it all relates to that same aspect. And that is what healed me over and over and over again, releasing every single past wound, healed me mentally, emotionally, and physically. So yes, that's part of what happened after I had my awakening a few years ago.
Yeah, boy, it sounds profound. You know, the story confirms for me what we hear over and over again. It's all about vibration.
Mm,
It's all energy. It's all frequency. And
mm,
if we can let those pains go, those emotional pains go, that also heals the form that's here on earth.
yes, very much so.
Mhm.
Mm,
So you're back here on earth because it was your choice. And
yeah.
to assist with, we can call it the shift or the change of humanity, the ascension or whatever.
Yeah.
Have you, because you made that choice in a state outside of Earth, it was profound. It was an energetic spiritual decision,
Mhm,
which is huge. You know, once you make a decision, then you go down that path.
mhm.
How is that unfolding for you? Are you able to connect with some of those, if not the exact experiences that you saw that you thought you could be helpful with, but you're able to connect with that type of energy and feel like your decision to come back has been fruitful and you're doing what you intended to do?
Yes, thank you. It's a wonderful question. Yes, so angels gave me a lot to do um, after I had my awakening. So, besides some aspects that I'd already mentioned, where they said, okay, you're going to energy heal and you're going to be a spiritual coach for others, which I have been doing both, and that you're going to be a speaker to pass along, their messages of the light. So they have me doing all that, but there's also multiple other things that I've been doing. One is, this is more complicated, and it's something that's probably the most difficult thing for me to speak of. So I'll just speak a little bit about it. But at one point, Archangel Michael came to me and started working with me more and more, um, and gave me so many beautiful channelings as well, which makes sense, of course. All angels' channelings are so poetic and just filled with so much beauty and love and hope and everything else. But one aspect that they showed me, because I have over many lifetimes been able to harness an ability to connect and work with energies on the astral realm, he actually took me into war zones down here. So at the beginning of the Ukraine war, for example, which had meant a lot to me because I'm Canadian, but my background is Ukrainian. My mom and my grandparents had been born there, and everyone before them. Um, he took me a few times into the war zone there, and I was connecting with people and connecting with their energies and attempting to pour in as much love and light energy as I can and help lessen some moments there of things that were going on, to kind of bring that down and kind of spread the light and the love energy, if that makes sense. So there are a few times that has happened. I actually did go a couple of times later on to the Gaza Strip and area after in the news, when Hamas had first started had first taken hostages there. So there's a few times that there's some other work that I have more kind of done with angels that's a little more difficult to explain. But
Mhm.
there are some things that, because I literally did tell angels, hey, what do you guys need a human like me to help you with? I'll help you. So I realize you have to be very careful when you offer things to angels, because they will literally take you up on your offer. Because every
Mhm.
single time that I did over the years, whether I was a 13-year-old child or whether I was an adult, they said, okay, this is what we need help with, come with us. And
Yeah.
they do some other things. So technically, I have been now more especially fulfilling contracts that I had
Yeah.
opened up myself from my free will choice of offering things to them, and with them deciding what, they needed help with the most, in different aspects. So it's been really interesting, kind of
Yeah.
always being there and here and transitioning back and forth and helping them with various things. So it's a process. It's a process.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as I know, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Again, as far as I know, and I try my best, and there's times I'm not gonna lie, it's been a process. Has become very overwhelming at times. So they've had to, go back and forth with kind of what they gave me, or what I'm kind of working with them on, or what I more need to know in terms of channelings and getting certain messages out there. But it's a work in process. So I'm I'm working on it.
Yeah. Earth is a work in process.
Yes.
So as you look on, this whole transition that we're going through on Earth, and I think that those who are kind of awake and aware,
Mm,
it's the focus right now. It's like we recognize that things are really changing, and
mm,
I can see it around me, and I think people can see it in themselves, a higher sensitivity. Maybe their clairs are coming on board. They're just starting to
mm,
expand their awareness. From your perspective, because you are going back and forth
mm.
and maybe working in different ways than the rest of us, how's it going? How are we
Mm.
doing here on Earth? And what can you tell us about where we're at now and where you think we're headed, let's say in the next 6 months or so?
Yes. So sorry. I'm a
Were you
little ADD.
listening?
No, I was listening. I'm
No, I
ADD.
thought you were listening.
I'm
I thought you
sorry.
were listening to your angels.
Oh, no. Sorry, I'm a little ADD. So there's times when I get so focused on one part of the question, and then I got so focused on the second part of your question, I lost the first part. So my apologies, but if you
No.
can just let me know the first part of it again, and then I'll answer, and then get back
Yeah.
to the second part. I should have
Well,
let you know that at the beginning.
that's okay. What I'm really trying to give some information on is because you have a different perspective. You
Okay.
have a broader perspective than probably a lot of us because you're going back and forth between, the astral and here and working with a different type of energy to help us through what's going on Earth. How do you think it's going? Like, how are we doing? Where do you see us? What do you see happening on Earth over the next 6 months? Just to kind of help people get a feel for where we're at.
Yes. So I always say the same of what the light always tells us is all is well, right? They always say all is well. Whenever I'm worried about anything, all is well. So so it is. So there's nothing for us to ever fear, and it's beautiful. One thing angels, or one of the many things angels told me, is they said fear's power comes from making you think it has power over you, but it has none. So they always just say, just don't look at the fear. Fear is more man-made. It's not part of, our beautiful existence up there, and all is well and all is okay. So there's nothing for us to worry about. That yes, this is the time of the transition, the time of the shift. But it's all nothing is here as a punishment, right? It's there, from what I understand, is things are being shaken up in society to be brought up to the light for us to see them for what they are, so that we can choose to put it aside, to choose to do things in a different way that will be more unifying, more peaceful, more equal for all. So that's all it is. It's that shakeup that needs to be done. So it makes sense. So we're actually all doing this both on a personal level and as a societal level and on a world level, for us to all do this healing, to all do this purging process. So all is well during this process is what they keep telling me. The next 6 months, yes, is interesting. So there are multiple different aspects that are slowly also helping us along this path to very slowly be raising the vibration. And it needs to happen so slowly for us to get used to it. We can't go from let's say, a really, really steaming hot shower, maybe to just jumping into freezing cold. I mean, technically you can down here, but you're going to feel it, is my point. That's an extremity of what you're going to feel if you go from one end into, it has to be so ever so slowly over these, especially 20 years that we're in. So one aspect is the sun. I always say Mother Earth and Mother Sun. They have beautiful, technically in the afterlife, there's no actual genders, right? Just it's all genderless, but it's just in my mind, I always see that the energies is just this feminine, beautiful, motherly, loving energy from the earth and the sun. So I always just say she, but but the sun, she goes through 11-year cycles. So next year was originally supposed to be the solar maximum. However, a year early, this year, she decided to have her maximum, and we've been having so many more solar flares and coronal mass ejections thrown at us, sent our ways, and well, also the rest of the universe, but us especially a year early, and so much more than originally the scientists had predicted. But this is part of it. So every time we're getting hit by those energies, they're helping us. And what these energies are doing is, it is triggering a lot of people's, or it is heightening, people's emotions, or can trigger them, which isn't a bad thing. This is, helping us to raise our energies. And again, it's helping with that purging process for us to be aware of maybe what's inside of us, so we can choose to, just allow it to go, put it aside, right? So we can help raise our own frequencies. It's also having an effect where, for some people, it's giving them insomnia. For others like me, it's knocking me out, so to speak. So I can feel every time the energies are hitting us with the sun's beautiful energies. And it make a lot of times I have to take a nap, and it puts me far down into the hypnagogic state, which is when you're most of the way to sleep, but still just slightly conscious. It's one of the most powerful states that angels have shown me we can get into to connect with the ethereal. That's where I leave my body to go astral traveling. That's where sometimes people can connect to the other side, gain premonitions, gain extra information. And when the sun's sending us these energies, it sends me into that state, and I can feel it kind of tweaking my energies. So this is something that's helping us right now for most of the rest of this year, as helping us do that. And there's other things going on in other realms as well to kind of send energy our way, as well as, especially the past decade, there's been more and more older souls starting to come into bodies. And then with each new one that's being born into the world, that's also helping to raise our vibration. So there's multiple different facets happening to slowly help raise this, so we can acclimate ourselves as this is slowly happening to help us. So that's one thing that's going on right now.
It is so exciting to me. It is so exciting to me. I just feel so incredibly privileged to be on the planet right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
As far as I hear, that's why we especially have, for a long time, that our population has, gone up and up, and this is one aspect why a lot of people have wanted to come down to be part of, the transitionary years. So,
yeah, the exciting times on Earth.
yeah.
Gosh, this has been so fascinating. Thank you for sharing all your story. It was just, it's such a tremendously interesting story, and you've gone through so much. How do we find out more about you?
Yes, I'll let you know my my website. So my website is lovelightenergyhealing.ca, or my email address is nadine@lovelightenergyhealing.ca.
Okay. And we'll have all that listed in the description box down below. This has just been such a delight to hear your story and to meet you. Thank you for coming in, Nadine. It's been wonderful.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate it so much, Kimberly.
All right. And let's stick in there and keep this ascension process going. It's going to be a fun ride.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Bye now.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Coming up next, this is a good one, or you might really like this one too. Either one of them could be perfect for you. Before you leave, don't forget to subscribe.